Today I am now here with Miss Gwendolyn Mitchell, CEO of Moyo Institute and the Meditation Ambassador for COVID's Richmond. So the conversations we've been having for the past couple weeks, we literally just talked.
Right.
We literally just talked right before we got on live and realized that we hadn't given context into how this conversation about self-care and disrupting the health effects of systemic racism, how this even came about. So a couple of weeks ago, you wrote a blog post centered on this whole idea of the 9 steps it takes to basically center self as you continue the fight, right?
That's
and taking care of self. And so last week we talked, and the very first step was control what we let in, or that was 2 weeks ago. We talked about control what we let in, and so we're going to be going in sequential order of the steps.
That's right.
For you to be able to follow along and be a part. So if you have, well, of course you haven't because we haven't mentioned it, but I highly encourage you to go ahead and take a read. It's a very quick read, I believe it's about 6 to 7 minutes, about this topic on her website. And moyoinstitute.com,
.org.
Yes. There you go. moyoinstitute.org to get full knowledge into what we're talking about here on live. And then if for some reason you forget that, CoBiz is on Medium, where we blog as well, and you were a guest blogger for this piece as well. So it's an interesting read, it's a good read. We talk about self-care in kind of this holistic sense, in a general sense, but having this pointed towards systemic racism is important. So there's some context for you.
Because systemic racism brings about chronic stress, and the chronic stress has devastating health impacts for all of us.
Right.
So, but I'd like to start this section because it's also tied into the meditations that we do every Thursday.
Yes.
And so I'd like to start with asking our viewers to take a few deep breaths. So why don't we, so if you're driving, of course, keep your eyes open. If you're in a place where you can just close your eyes for a few minutes, I want to invite you to close your eyes and sit with your feet flat on the floor, spine erect, and let's take 3 deep breaths. And I want us to take the inhale in silence, and then when we exhale, make the sound of a bumblebee. So it goes like this. So join me, let's do that 3 times, okay? Okay, let's breathe in once and just exhale normally. And open your eyes.
Woo!
Thank you.
Centered.
It gets centered, it calms the mind, it quiets the mind, and it's a preparation step that we often do for meditation. So.
Awesome. So we are going to dive into your article. So step 2 of this topic is unraveling the messages of self-hatred.
That's right. And before I go specifically into what those messages are, I'd like to talk about America.
Oh, okay. By all means.
The word America and the country.
Okay.
So if you take the letters in the word America and mix them up, America, you get an anagram, or another word, a phrase, which says, I am race. I am race.
Whoa!
Okay? So what I want everyone to understand is that this whole issue of race is like embedded in the name of the country itself. And so it's not a surprise that it's such a potent issue in the day-to-day experiences of folks who live here. Now, what we know is that race is not even anything that is real, according to science, and that it's a social construct. I like to call it propaganda. Agenda, propaganda. Yes. But it also, whether it's real or not, the way it operates in the society has very real and consequential impacts for people, particularly people of color.
Yes.
And so what we find in this culture, in this country, is a message, repeated messages of one group being superior to others.
Right.
And so I want to think about this subject of self-hatred in two ways, because it's not limited to any particular group. I mean, when I was first writing about this, I was thinking about the messages that we as Black folks internalize in terms of self-hatred.
Right.
But I realized that, you know, for any group or any person that feels like they have to become superior or be superior by diminishing someone else, you know, there's an invitation there to look more deeply at what's going on.
Right.
And so I would invite people to consider the fact that if this notion of superiority by diminishing others exists in any group, then that means that the seeds of self-hatred are also there. You know, because, you know, here you are inflating yourself at the expense of someone else.
Very egotistical.
Very egotistical. And so the messages of self-hatred are for all of us to really look at. And it's really something that's deeply embedded in our psyche. Historically, it's been the case. And we have to begin to unravel those messages on both sides of the aisle. You know, so I mean, I can be okay without you being less.
Say that again.
You know,
I can say it again.
I can be okay without you being less. I don't have to diminish you in order to feel like I'm better.
And that's just talking about identity.
Talking about identity is talking about mindset. It's talking about approach to life. You know, so I think this is really a message for everyone. You know, it doesn't matter which group you identify with. You know, the invitation is to really look inside and see, where am I holding this notion that I'm better than someone else, or that I'm more important, or that I'm superior than someone else, and then where does that come from? You know, so I would submit, I don't want to say argue.
Submit.
I would submit that it comes from feelings of inferiority, feelings of not being enough, feelings of not being good enough, and therefore I'm going to get that at your expense.
And then there's also the reverse effect. I'm reading off of the blog post. So if you haven't had an opportunity, you guys, make sure you check out Ms. Gwendolyn's blog post on self-care and meditation, a radical life-affirming response to racism. So I'm reading message number 2, that there is the feeling of superiority, but then there's also the feeling of feeling less than.
That's right.
There's two sides of a coin here.
Yeah. And so, you know, for my generation, we were bombarded with these messages of being less than. You know, with the first images on television, you know, we're represented as caricatures as opposed to the full complex human beings that we are. And so we were told from bogus studies that we were less capable. You know, all of this stuff is political and it's economically driven.
Yes.
And it's an agenda.
Absolutely.
And so these messages of not being good enough, for instance, they may show up as feeling unworthy, as unlovable, as not belonging. You know, there's all kinds of ways that those messages show up, and sometimes they are deeply, deeply embedded in our subconscious. You know, research shows that what happens in the conscious mind is only about 10%. 90%.
I can attest to that.
90% of what goes on in the mind is happening in the unconscious layers of the mind.
Right.
You know, in the subconscious. And so it's like that iceberg they always show in different workshops, where the part that you see above water is only about 10%, but the huge mass is underneath.
Right. And it's ties directly back into point number 1, which is control what we let in.
That's exactly right.
Like, if you let these messages in, if you let the world tell you who you are without really identifying who you are for self, this becomes a part of your being, a part of your existence, a part of who you become as a person. And because it's on a subconscious level, a lot of times, especially for Black people, I know we're talking about it in general, but also specific to Black people, we don't have the opportunities to do this deep dive meditation of the subconscious. We just kind of exist.
Well, we're so busy trying to survive in many cases that we don't even entertain the concept of self-care.
Right.
You know, and so what I want to let people know, though, it doesn't require, I mean, it can be helpful to get external supports like therapy, like, you know, talking to your minister if he's a conscious person.
Yes. Talking to your conscious minister.
Conscious person, you know. So
meditation with you.
Well, meditation with me and many other teachers. And so
with her. I'm trying to take this away from you. Okay. Meditation with her. Reiki
sure,
master.
Sure,
yeah,
sure.
Right here. See, I said it right this time.
Okay, thank you. So, like, as we begin to pay attention, as we begin this process of paying attention to the breath, taking some time to just sit and breathe, like we did just now, and then just be still and just see what comes. If you're willing to really look at what's going on inside of you, the universe will respond and bring it to your attention.
Ashe.
You know? So I invite people to try it and to actually realize that there's no judgment. There's no need to judge ourselves for what we find there. But whenever we find what's going on at a deeper level, we're actually bringing light into the situation.
Absolutely.
And when we bring light there, it begins the process of dispelling the darkness.
I love that, dispelling the darkness. My life coach put it this way: in the space of grace is self-forgiveness.
That's right.
And so from interpreting, correct me if I'm wrong, but in the space of stillness brings consciousness.
Exactly.
So you become aware of self through time. And so what would you, I won't say suggest, because suggestions people don't tend to take them, but what would be a way that a person who wants to become aware of their unconscious biases of self or the self-hatred that they have within self, what would you say would be a starting point?
Well, just look at some of the choices that you're making. If you feel like, you have to, like you don't look good enough, like you're worried about the size of your nose or the kinkiness of your hair, all these old kind of messages. There's been so much war on Black bodies, over the centuries, essentially. That we have got to be proactive in terms of reclaiming,
absolutely,
the sanctity of these bodies, the beauty of these bodies, and the value of these bodies.
Yes.
And when I was coming along, we understood that you had to be 10 times better than the next person to get a shot at the job,
and
for
that
instance.
still exists.
Shout
out to COVID. I do not have to do that anymore.
And so, recognize those ways that you have internalized those messages.
Mhm.
Like, are you overworking?
Mhm.
Are you just working yourself in the ground,
Right.
at the expense of all else, your family, your loved ones? And also, I think if you're perpetrating violence of any sort on anybody, you need to really look inside.
Absolutely.
Okay, because if you're being violent towards a spouse or to your children or to members of your family or your community,
Mhm.
if you're selling drugs in your community,
Mhm.
that's a form of self-hatred.
Right.
People think of it as, I need to be able to make some money.
Right.
Okay, well, no, you don't kill your people to make money. You don't entrap your people to make money.
Mhm.
So I know that for some this might not be a popular message, but I
Right.
think it's an important one. We have to begin to look at all of these things and, as I like to say, connect the dots.
Absolutely.
So I would start by breathing, being willing to be still, being willing to look without judgment at what's going on internally,
Mhm.
and then connect with teachers, connect with a meditation group.
Mhm.
Join us on Thursdays when we do the meditation atop the parking garage here
Yes.
in Richmond. So these are just some of the ways that we can start to kind of weave together a new opportunity for ourselves,
Absolutely.
a new future for ourselves.
Absolutely. And it all starts with the breath.
It starts with the breath.
And that's the beautiful thing about it. And one thing that I want you guys to be aware of is that she's brought up multiple realms in which this can come up. It's not just who you date. It's how you treat people, how you treat yourself, what you do, the activities that you're a part of. Again, when I say part of your be, for some of you who don't know what be is your being. So part of who you are as a person is literally webbed into the DNA of who you are. And we talked about that from a scientific perspective of controlling what we let in last time we were here. And so it's very crucial to understand the depths of this. So I am always heartfelt to sit next to you. I learn so much every
Thank
single
you.
time.
Thank you. Well, I'm delighted to sit next to you because I love your insights, I love your wisdom, I love your questions, and I love your heart. So thank you.
Oh, she gonna get me crying on live. I think there's somebody still on here, so I'm not gonna do that. But I am very appreciative of the work you do. So, is there anything else that we can cover on unraveling the messages of self-hatred?
Well, I would say that I love this quote from Ta-Nehisi Coates, "Between the World and Me," which is, they made us a race and we made us ourselves a people. So I just want to say that I feel the love and appreciate the love and invite everyone who's listening to really look around you in your community, in your family, and see where you might have been holding judgments, right? And to let those judgments go,
Right.
And recognize that there's a level of vulnerability that we all feel, and people have made choices and decisions, and we have made choices and decisions trying to shield ourselves from that vulnerability.
Exactly.
But actually, we have to be willing to tap into those places again, to shed the light there if we're ever going to heal those wounds and be able to move forward. Absolutely. And leave this place, our bodies, our communities better for the generations to come.
Absolutely. And remember, you're always becoming. So it's always a life journey. Don't end until you're done. So give yourself grace, have forgiveness, and keep doing the work.
Keep doing the work.
Keep doing the work. So we'll be back next Tuesday at 12 p.m. sitting down with Ms. Gwendolyn. Next week's topic is examine how you communicate, which is somebody who is very, very particular with words. I'm looking forward to next week's conversation. And if you have not had the opportunity, here is your formal invitation to come join us Thursdays at 7:15 p.m. on the roof of Cobus Richmond, on the roof of BART. We have sunset meditations with Miss Gwendolyn Mitchell. And when I tell you it is a powerful experience, I finally got my schedule together to be able to go this Thursday. So I need a little moments of breath in my life. So if you have not had the opportunity to meditate with us, come on through. The link for meditation is in our bio on our profile. Tickets are reasonably priced. Miss Gwendolyn literally leads heart and soul in what she does, and I'm grateful because when it comes to spirituality, work, and things like that, we have to be very particular about who we submit ourselves unto. And then when we do that, to make sure that these people have our interests in mind, and Miss Gwendolyn's heart is for her community. So make sure that you tap in, support a Black-owned business, that is Miss Gwendolyn, and in the Moyo Institute. And we will either see you on Thursday for meditation or next Tuesday at 12 p.m. on live.
Beautiful.
All
Thank
right,
you so
you guys.
much, Christina.
You're welcome.
Thanks to Cobus.
Absolutely. Shout out to the biz.
To the biz.
And we will holler at you next week.
Yeah.
Bye.